The reckoning of Judge Camden, the silence before the storm. Ariel Monroe was no stranger to pressure. She had stood her ground before dangerous defendants as a public defender in Dallas, had championed policy reform on Capitol Hill as a congresswoman, and had walked out of courtrooms carrying the weight of justice for those the system ignored. But this day felt different. The heavy doors of the Ninth Circuit courthouse creaked open, and as she stepped into the vast chamber, the air shifted. It was cold, sharp, not merely heavy with legal tension, but something more insidious. Today, Ariel was facing off against Judge Malcolm Camden, a man whose name was synonymous with judicial scorn and whispered controversy. Known for his piercing tongue and erratic rulings, Camden presided today over a case that could shatter public trust in the city's leadership. The defendant was Graham Delaney, a powerful real estate developer with deep ties to local political elites, particularly the conservative power circles. Delaney stood accused of embezzling state development funds through a web of shell companies. The evidence was damning, fortified by audits and whistleblower testimony. Ariel believed it was strong enough to bring even someone like Delaney to justice. What she hadn't counted on was the man on the bench. Judge Camden didn't even look up when Ariel approached the prosecution's table. He lazily flipped through a file, letting the silence stretch across the room like smoke. Without so much as a glance, he muttered, "Miss Monroe, I trust you've brought something of value. Or should we skip straight to the part where you waste the court's time with more of your melodrama?" Soft laughter echoed from Delaney's legal team. Ariel remained composed. "Your Honor, the facts will speak for themselves. This is a case of criminal misuse of taxpayer funds, and my role is to present those facts without bias." Camden leaned back, ankle over knee, feigning boredom. "Taxpayer funds," he scoffed. "That phrase has been milked more times than this court's coffee pot." "With respect," Ariel replied, unwavering, "allegations of corruption supported by financial audits and corroborated by insider testimony deserve serious attention." He cut her off. "Spare me the sermon, Miss Monroe. I have little tolerance for progressive crusades disguised as legal arguments. Stick to the law, if you please." The jab was blatant. Ariel steadied herself, opened her case file, and turned to Exhibit A. "If I may direct your attention." "Do you always smother your arguments in paperwork?" Camden interjected loudly. "Or is this how you try to make up for a lack of substance?" A ripple moved through the gallery. A defense attorney chuckled. Ariel didn't blink. She recognized this game. Men like Camden thrived on intimidation. "If there are personal grievances to address," she said calmly, "I'd be happy to request a recess. But I'm here to present evidence, not play games." For a flicker of a second, something shifted in Camden's eyes. She saw it. This wasn't legal strategy. It was personal, and she had touched a nerve. "Your Honor," she resumed, clicking to the next slide projected onto the courtroom screen. Exhibit B outlines a series of payments made by Delaney's firm to shell companies. These entities, when cross-referenced with city contract records. "Enough," Camden snapped, his voice cracking like thunder. Jurors flinched. The atmosphere changed. It was no longer about law. It was about power. "Respectfully, Your Honor," Ariel continued, voice low but firm. "If we stop here, we risk ignoring one of the largest public fund misuses in this city's history." Camden leaned forward, voice cold. "And if we continue, we risk wasting the court's time on hypothetical ledgers and political theater. This isn't about your ambition, Miss Monroe." The gallery stirred, uncomfortable. Still, Ariel held her ground. "Then let the evidence speak," she said, her voice like steel. She remembered something, an obscure city council session last month that reviewed a housing project. In the minutes, buried in the records, was a line item transferring zoning oversight authority to Judge Camden's chambers. Highly irregular. Judges didn't handle zoning. She turned to the next slide. "This email," she said, "documents correspondence between a Delaney project manager and a city zoning coordinator regarding expedited approval for Parcel 12C. The attached document names the authorized signatory." She clicked again. "That signature belongs to you, Judge Camden." The room fell into a chilling silence. Even the court reporter's keys paused. Camden's expression froze. A muscle in his jaw ticked. That document is inadmissible. Ariel lifted an eyebrow. It was subpoenaed and entered into discovery. It was mishandled, Camden said quickly. The chain of custody is compromised. You're declaring a document with your signature inadmissible, right after it implicates you in the scheme under investigation. No reply. His silence said more than words ever could. Delaney's defense attorney stood. This is an abuse of process. My client isn't responsible for zoning. Ariel turned. We're not discussing your client. We're discussing a sitting judge who may have approved fraudulent permits. Delaney's smugness vanished. A Tribune reporter rose quietly and slipped out, phone to ear. Ariel stepped forward and held up the paper. I have more documents, emails, names. But first, I'd like to ask a question. Why is the judge presiding over a trial in which he authorized half the contracts under investigation? The room was still. Even the jury barely breathed. Camden stood slowly. Approach the bench, he said. His voice was low, tight. Ariel approached. When she reached him, he leaned forward. Walk away, Miss Monroe, he whispered. You don't want what's coming. She tilted her head. Is that a threat? It's a warning, he hissed. The system is bigger than you. It doesn't change just because some idealist wants to throw a tantrum. She leaned in, colder than ice. Then maybe it's time we broke the system. His face twisted. You're making a mistake. No, she said, stepping back. You did. And now you've been caught. She returned to her seat. The energy in the room had shifted. Jurors knew. Reporters knew. Even Delaney knew. The judge was compromised. And Ariel Monroe was only getting started. That afternoon, the courtroom became a media circus. News vans lined the street. Hashtags like hashtag Camden corruption and hashtag Monroe versus machine trended within hours. By evening, Ariel's inbox was full, some praising her courage, others accusing her of weaponizing identity politics. But what caught her off guard were the threats, anonymous emails, slashed tires, a drone outside her apartment. One email read, "You think exposing Camden brings justice? You'll burn with him." Ariel didn't flinch. The next day in court, the prosecution filed a motion to recuse Judge Camden. As expected, Camden refused. But the public outcry had grown too loud. The state attorney general's office intervened. Camden was placed under investigation. Within a week, he resigned for personal reasons. Delaney's trial continued under a new judge. Ariel presented the rest of the evidence, emails, signatures, even a recorded phone call between Camden and Delaney. Delaney was convicted, but Ariel knew the fight wasn't over. The corruption ran deeper. Camden was just the beginning. She stared at the courthouse, thinking, if justice had to start with fire, she would light the match. And she did. One court, one judge, one reckoning at a time. The reckoning of Judge Camden. The Silence Before the Storm, Part 2, Shadows in the System. Ariel Monroe knew the war wasn't over. Judge Camden's resignation had ignited a firestorm. While the headlines praised her bravery and painted Delaney's conviction as a win for justice, Ariel saw the cracks in the foundation no one else dared acknowledge. Within days, a federal grand jury opened an inquiry into the entire zoning board. Ariel received a sealed envelope. No return address, just the words, Parcel 12C was just the beginning. Inside was a flash drive. On it, encrypted files, floor plans, and what looked like offshore account ledgers with names she recognized, elected officials, city planners, and at least 2 sitting judges. She took it to Special Agent Troy Maddox, a former military investigator turned whistleblower ally at the Bureau of Public Integrity. Maddox took one look at the documents and went pale. This isn't just zoning, he said. This is racketeering, possibly tied to state-level campaign laundering. Suddenly, Ariel found herself at the center of a far-reaching scandal. Her staff was surveilled. Her office was hacked. A legal intern was followed home and threatened. They weren't just trying to discredit her now. They wanted her afraid. But fear wasn't new to her. While testifying before a Senate Ethics Committee, Ariel dropped a bombshell: a list of 37 contracts approved under emergency zoning waivers, many bearing the initials MC for Malcolm Camden. Her testimony sent shockwaves through the chamber. One senator whispered to another, "She's going to collapse the whole system." And maybe she was. The deeper she dug, the worse it became. HUD grants redirected to luxury condos. Public parklands sold off in secret. And always the same players: Delaney, Camden, and a mysterious consulting firm named Lincrest Strategies. Ariel traced the firm to an unlisted building in Arlington. When she arrived unannounced, a security guard threatened to call the police. Minutes later, her phone pinged. "Unknown, we warned you." That night, her apartment door was kicked in. Nothing stolen, but her legal files were gone. It only hardened her resolve. She held a press conference on the courthouse steps. With reporters crowded shoulder to shoulder, she named names. "We are no longer talking about isolated corruption. We are talking about a criminal enterprise operating under the illusion of governance." The fallout was immediate. 3 city council members resigned. The mayor denied involvement, and Lincrest Strategies' website went offline within hours. Then came the counterattack. Ariel was accused of evidence tampering. Anonymous sources claimed she had coerced witnesses. Conservative media spun her crusade as a political hit job. The district attorney, once an ally, announced a special investigation into her conduct. But the public wasn't fooled. Thousands marched in support of her. Whistleblowers came forward. A retired judge gave her a ledger, handwritten records implicating Camden and Delaney in a 20-year scheme involving land theft, voter suppression, and racial redlining. Maddox, working with the FBI now, called her at midnight. "They're planning to bury this. We need a federal prosecutor, one outside state control." She flew to D.C., met behind closed doors with the Deputy Attorney General, and laid it all out. She showed them names, proof, threats, evidence. The DAG's response? "Do you understand the kind of war you're about to start, Miss Monroe?" "I didn't start it," she replied, "but I won't let it continue." 2 weeks later, federal indictments were unsealed. 18 officials, Camden included. As Ariel walked past the now-shuttered courthouse where it all began, she paused. A young girl waved at her from the crowd. Ariel smiled, nodded, and kept walking. The reckoning wasn't over. Not until every shadow had been dragged into the light. And for Ariel Monroe, the fight had just begun. One system, one woman, one relentless pursuit of justice.